What's going on, HobbyLink International? My name is Ben and welcome back to the bench for a final episode here on Ben Builds the B-Wing. I'm super excited to jump in here and see what we can do. So let's waste no time. Let's start having some fun. Now we need to go ahead and first off start with a little bit of weathering here on the B-Wing. And I'm pretty sure that that's going to call it quits for the actual model kit. We still have the base to contend with and all the electronics to hook up there in the base. But I think for the most part, this is all we have to do to get this B-Wing straightened out and ready to go. Now you'll notice I'm using a wash here. This is actually a clay-based wash by UMP, and I've used this one before on other model kits, and the nice thing about this is it's really quite benign. It doesn't really affect Bandai plastic. You got to be real careful with what type of washes you end up using on Bandai plastic because sometimes they will literally eat the model, and that's not what you want to do after you spend so much time working on the kit. So I haven't had any trouble with clay-based washes or any sort of homemade sludge washes with acrylic paint or anything like that. So that's what we're going to be using today, and this should actually tint down the paint just a little bit, giving it a slightly weathered and worn look without having to go too crazy. So let's go ahead and jump into that first time lapse, and we're going to go ahead and apply a sludge wash over the entire model kit. Then we're going to come back and take a little bit of patience and some Q-tips, and we'll remove the majority of it, leaving all that nice rich color in recesses and panels and all those interesting little details. So let's go ahead and get on with it, guys. Let's have some fun. Let's go ahead and finish us a B-Wing. Alright guys, we are back, and I actually forgot to do one thing. I forgot to put on my decals. And in my own defense, I actually ended up using the majority of colors and whatnot to paint on all the markings that we had for decals. But what I forgot to do is add in any of the stencils or little placards. So that's what we're going to go ahead and do, and it shouldn't be any sort of trouble. These should drop right into place, and they're so tiny, they're so small. A little bit out of order here, but we're going to jump in and we're going to apply some decals, just to make sure we have everything on the model kit and we can move on to a nice semi-gloss coat, and I think the B-Wing will be finished. So let's jump back in there, guys. Let's go ahead and fix up our error, move on, and see what we can do. All right, everybody, so we are back and the B-wing is more or less finished. We've gotten all the parts and pieces on there. We did put on the decals, so I'm happy about that. We've overcoated it with a nice semi-flat coat. We're going to leave it to dry and we're going to move our attention over to the base. Now the base is going to be kind of interesting because I want to try to do something similar to what I did with my Lando Falcon. We're going to use this unfinished wooden shadow box that I kind of retrofitted here for a base, and we're going to apply on top of that some EVA craft foam, very thin. I think it's like 2mm thick craft foam. And then we're going to add on top of that all sorts of greeblies, and we're going to punch out little discs and circles, make some custom buttons, and we're going to try to give this a little bit more of a B-wing cockpit look. So that's the first plan. So let's go ahead and jump into a time lapse, and I'm just going to go ahead and start making some things, and we're going to see what we can do and make some switches. But I want to make a toggle switch as well. I want to go ahead and open up the areas for our switches and our dials and all that good stuff. So let's get back in there. Let's go ahead and make us some greeblies and get this all planned out. And that's always the tough part, guys, figuring out what you want and where you want to put it. But anyway, let's go ahead and get in there, guys. Let's see what we can do. All right, so we are back, and as you can see, I have finalized the basic design of the base, and I've primed everything with some Krylon filler primer. So we're going to sand it down, and I think we'll be ready to go ahead and start doing some painting. Now for the painting itself, we have a whole bunch of things planned, but I think we're going to just go ahead and first off sand everything so it's nice and smooth, and we'll have a nice finish. Now in terms of our greeblies, I went ahead and pulled out my last hard drive motor, so I've got that going in. I punched out a couple of dials and oval shapes that I can go ahead and use for buttons and switches. I tried to go ahead and invoke that B-wing cockpit vibe. I looked at pictures of different concepts and of course from different video games I've played in the past, and I think I've been able to achieve something that is at least similar in feeling. So it's not exactly perfect, but I think it's going to be okay. Now in terms of greeblies, I've actually pulled out a hard drive motor. I've got this little toggle switch I made out of styrene. I have, of course, our support for the B-wing. I've got our push button switch for the power, and I've got a coaxial connector. Now none of these really do anything except for the power button. They're just there more to invoke kind of that sense of a Star Wars type vibe and add a little bit of interest to the base. Nothing too fancy there. Now I do plan on coming back and doing a bit more in terms of painting, however. I want to outline certain areas like this little control panel down here. I want to outline that in maybe yellow. That might be a kind of a fun color. And then I want to go ahead and add in some stencils, and I want to go ahead and draw some lines, see what I can do, and maybe even put in some words like instructions to the pilot. I've got a couple of ideas. I've got some Arabic fonts there on my computer. I might be able to print up something like, say, engine start or data link or anything like that. Caution might be a good one too. We'll just go ahead and type up a couple of words and we'll print them out on our Cricut cutter. Go ahead and get these ready to go. So let's go ahead and jump back into our time lapse. This should be the last time lapse, to be honest, guys. We're going to go ahead and start painting up the base. We've got some really cool steel red we can use. We've got some yellow, some red. We've got different colors like green and blue for switches. We're really going to get in there and we're going to do quite a bit of painting and stenciling. Let's go ahead and push on. We're almost done, guys. right, everybody, we are back, and I gotta say, I really like how the base turned out. We're gonna show you a finished product in a second though, but I wanna go ahead and talk a little bit about a couple of finer points that we need to go ahead and do here for the B-Wing. And one of the things I wanna go ahead and do is I've actually punched out 4 circular discs of clear styrene. What I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to paint those this amber orange color, and I'm going to drop those into each of the engines. That's going to eliminate a little bit of the halo effect that we've got going on right now. Then I want to go ahead and mount the B-Wing down to the base, and you can kind of get a little sneak peek here on what I did with the base, and we'll talk a bit more about it. Let's glue this down, and I actually placed the B-Wing in the upper corner, figuring that would be a really good place to kind of center the B-Wing on the base itself, just so it doesn't kind of hang over the edge and it's nice and stable. So we'll go ahead and glue this down with some super glue. We'll also hit some super glue on the inside of it as well, and we're going to accelerate that with some of this Bob Smith's accelerator, just to make sure that's not going to go anywhere. Couple of applications on that, and we might even need to add a little bit of hot glue as well, but for right now the super glue is going to hold nicely. So let's go ahead and just cap our lid here and check out the B-Wing, make sure it's nice and stable. And yeah, it's not bad. It's got a little bit of a wobble in it, but it is kind of a tall model, so I'm not surprised. Now let's go ahead and move over to our soldering station, and we are going to go ahead and tin up all of our wires. We're going to make all our connections, and then I think we'll be pretty much done with the B-Wing, 100%. Now for the battery pack, I'm going to use a 3-volt, 2 AA batteries in there, and it's just a very simple holder. We're going to go ahead and wire everything up, negative to negative, positive to positive, and I'm going to go ahead and wire up that little push button switch on the positive line, and I think once we go ahead and tack in the battery pack and make our last connections, we'll be pretty good to go. Now, I'm no expert at soldering. I've only done this a few times, and honestly, I'm learning so much by just doing. I read a little bit online, I watch some good YouTube videos, but just kind of getting in there and doing the work and experimenting and trying new things, that's how I end up learning the most. But that is it, guys. We are all finished up with our B-Wing. It took us 5 episodes to go ahead and get this thing all wrapped up. Really, really happy with how it turned out. We've gotten a chance to kind of flex those artistic muscles just a little bit. We added in some extra greeblies. We added in some stenciling, some lettering, some different panel lines and whatnot. So I'm really happy with how this has turned out. Plus, this was a Comic-Con exclusive B-Wing. And I gotta say, you know what, Kenny, thank you so much for sending this to me. I had no idea to ever be able a chance to build a B-Wing. The B-Wing is one of my bucket list kits. I've always wanted to build one, just never have had the opportunity. So thanks to Kenny for reaching out, for giving me a shot at making this model kit for all of you wonderful folks here on HobbyLink International. And of course, thank you to everyone who's watched, who's enjoyed the series. And if you like what you saw, feel free to head over to my channel. I've got more builds like this on there. Now I did put in a couple of LEDs and some fiber optics, and this push button switch will go ahead and operate the cockpit lights and the engine lights. But I should also probably give you a low light situation here and show you just how bright these actually are. So let's go ahead and turn off the lights, and we'll go ahead and give this a quick push. And as you can see, voila, there you go. We've got the engine lights on, we've got the cockpit lights on. Here, as you can see, we've got almost like a light dark deal going on. Like half the cockpit is a Jedi, half the cockpit is a Sith. I didn't intend on doing that, but I just noticed that I kind of did it. It is what it is, kind of a fun little Easter egg, I suppose. The engines are nice and bright, very constant light. We've got that amber color, and that tends to match what the engine color should be, so pretty happy with that. But that is it, guys. We are all finished up with our B-Wing, 5 episodes in the bag, and I gotta tell you, I think we've got a pretty neat looking model here. We've got our custom base with all our little greeblies. We've scratch built some dials and some switches. We've added in some stencils, and they actually do say words too. If you have an Arabesh, you can translate if you'd like. This model kit was super fun to build. The Comic-Con exclusive 1/72nd scale Bandai B-Wing. What an amazing project, and I gotta say, so thankful that Kenny went ahead and reached out to me and sent this kit to me. Kenny, you the man. Hope you guys had fun. I know I did. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you when we see you.